out today. We invite up a co-host. You've enjoyed his comprehensive deconstructions of the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper album, and also his presentation of Roll Up, the Deconstruction of Magical Mystery Tour. You can also go to deconstructingthebeatles.com. His Revolver film opens up on March 15th. Please welcome Scott Fryman. He's still in Highland mode now. Good stuff. So yeah, grab a mic and welcome. And you are now going to be at Abbey Road on the River. Is that
I'm going to be at Abbey Road on the River. Yes, I'll be doing some more deconstructions there. I don't know exactly which ones, but I'll be there.
Okay. Well, Abbey Road on the River is May 25th through 29th, Memorial Weekend, right across the river, Ohio River, across from Louisville in Jeffersonville. So we hope that you guys will come out for that. So, all right, our first guest is a singer and a manager, songwriter, record producer. He became popular worldwide as a member of Peter and Gordon. He's given us great shows all week. Now, when they hit it big with the British invasion in 1964, nobody more qualified to talk about it from the inside than our first guest, Peter Asher. Mr. Asher. This man has worked overtime this week. What a collection of wonderful shows. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Are you one of the ones that stayed up all night?
No, I didn't.
Okay. There's always tonight.
Absolutely, yes.
Peter, you have many Beatle connections. The Lennon-McCartney wrote your first #1 hit, A World Without Love, several others. Now, Paul lived in your family home, is that true? For 2 years?
Yes.
So were you hearing songs being written all the time in that room?
Not all the time, but every now and then, yes.
And he was dating your sister Jane, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you really got the first cast-offs or anything that was going to be not recorded by the Beatles, right?
Well, that happened only once. I mean, World Without Love was a cast-off. As I mentioned in my show, you know, John kind of rejected it for the Beatles. So, and I've read subsequently that actually, to the point where he would interrupt Paul when Paul would try and sing him the song. The first line of the song goes, "Please lock me away." John would go, "Okay, I will. The song's over." Which I didn't witness personally, but that sounds like a John I knew. So, but that's the only cast-off actually that we got. For example, our second single, "Nobody I Know," was written by Paul specifically for us as a follow-up. Because, and I've explained this too, but maybe, if you don't mind me repeating myself, they took their songwriting job seriously. I mean, if you look at any interviews from back then, the one question we all got asked, without exception, by every interviewer in every country, was, what are you going to do when this is all over? Because the assumption was, confidently, that a career in pop music was 2 years or 3 years maximum, and you would be forgotten and go back to being a milkman, or which is Training the Dreamers actually. But like somebody, where you know, you go back to your previous job, and they, when people ask the Beatles that question, there are several interviews in which they both respond, "Oh, we'll be songwriters." They admired not only Elvis, Eddie Cochran, and Buddy Holly as pop heroes. They also admired Leiber and Stoller, Mann and Weil, Coffin and King, Holmes and Schumann, all the songwriting teams that they grew up admiring. So that's something they took seriously, and a career they intended to enter into, even if they weren't singing. So in that capacity, when World Without Love was a big hit, we came back to London. In this instance, Paul had finished "Nobody I Know" with a bridge, ready to record, delivered. And by the way, along with other songs from other songwriters. I mean, if you have a big hit, you get deluged with songs. So the process of hustling up songs ends when you have a huge hit.
Awesome.
So that was, World Without Love was indeed a cast-off, and the only one. And of course, "I Go to Pieces" was a cast-off too, but that wasn't Lennon.
Terrific song.
Sorry, I know my answers get a bit long and complicated.
John always said they wanted to be the Goffin and King of England, which is a typical.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they admired them, you know, enormously. And of course, Carol's career stands unequaled in the history of pop music in terms of a writing career being insanely successful, but more than anybody else, followed by being the most successful female singer-songwriter in the history of music. So she had like 2 amazing careers in one.
Before we bring out our second guest, about 30 seconds of 30 seconds. Thank you, everybody. Good night. 30 seconds of Mythbusters. Is it true?
I was keeping poor Micky waiting. Sorry.
I know we are keeping it waiting. Is it true, Peter, that the character of Austin Powers was modeled after you? No prejudgment here. Just want the facts.
The facts are these. No, but then again, yes. Because you asked the question, was the character of Austin Powers modeled after me? The answer is no. But was the look of Austin Powers modeled after some photos of me? Absolutely yes. There is, you can look at some pictures of me back then and of Austin Powers, and the bad teeth, the crooked teeth, the glasses, everything, that was me, and Mike admitted that. So the character, I think, was supposed to have been based on a DJ called Simon Reed. That's what
Okay.
not that I wasn't supposed to be Shagadelic, I like to think. But it was only, all I contributed was my peculiarly.
So when you met Mike Myers, did you want to hug him or punch him?
No, I thanked him.
Thank you. Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks for answering that. Thanks so much. All right, let's bring out our next guest. Joining us as a performer we've enjoyed so much this week on the Flower Power Cruise. I can't count how many shows and how many guest appearances and co-hosting events he's been to. His many shows, including, of course, his show last night and with Mr. Asher. And lead singer of the Monkees. He's also a singer, songwriter, actor, Emmy winner, and inventor. Please welcome Micky Dolenz.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Thanks for coming back. We're going to talk about Britain in America. So we'll touch on the Beatles' British invasion with the Beatles, but we also want to get into what was happening after that period of music in America. Now, if you looked at the record charts in December of 1963 in the US and the Hot 100 in December, there wasn't one British artist in the Hot 100. Well, that started to change, obviously, when CBS broadcast a special on the Beatles, CBS News in the morning with Mike Wallace, and that was on November 22nd. They were going to run it again that night. They had a terrific 7 or 8 minute special on the Beatles. And of course, November 22nd, 1963, all the news got preempted, and everybody knows why, right?
Yes,
It was the assassination of our president, John F. Kennedy. So that blocked out all of that for quite a while. Well, around December 10th, Walter Cronkite thought, you know, we really need something to kind of brighten things up here. It's been pretty sad for the past couple of weeks, so he decided to rerun that special on December 10th, or that special news piece on the CBS Evening News. And someone was watching it, a young Marcia Albert, and she called her local DJ, Carol James in Washington, D.C., and he had a friend who was a flight attendant. She brought I Want to Hold Your Hand Back. He played it on the radio December 17th. And the rest is history. The phones went crazy. Capital Rush released a single on December 26th. It hit the charts middle of January, and it went straight to #1, where it was there for 7 weeks. So that was the very beginning of all of that synergy happening. So who knows if the Beatles or the British acts would have arrived even sooner in America if we hadn't had the preempting of their news feature. So, but it's pretty much went like this before that. Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs, Skeeter Davis, the Chiffons, Bobby Vinton, Stevie Wonder. Some are pretty incredible. They weren't the Beatles. Andy Williams, Dale and Grace, Nat King Cole, all terrific performers, but not the kind of music that we expect from the British invasion and from America at that time. So that was pretty great. And let's see. Anyway, after the Beatles hit America, by the end of that year, there were 25 British acts by the end of '64 on the American Top 40. So that's pretty amazing that we went from none to 1 to 25 or 24. So I want to start with Peter, and I want to ask you, when you were part of that and you were in London, and was your goal always to come to America? Was that, or were you guys doing well anyway?
We looked at, yes, our goal was to come to America, certainly, but it appeared to be, when we first started singing and when the Beatles started, an entirely unachievable goal. It wasn't realistic. Because, as you say, the British acts, rock and rollers, did not have hits in America. It just didn't happen. The only hits were very few and far between, and they were tended to be oddities. Like Acker Bilk had a big hit with Stranger on the Shore. Lonnie Donegan had a hit with Rock Island Line and with There's Your Chewing Gum Loses Forever on the Bedpost Overnight. But actual rock and roll bands, I mean, even though we had our own rock and roll bands, we had Cliff Richard, you know, who we all thought was great. But America never took to them. A little later they did, ever so slightly, but I mean, it didn't seem realistic to us, because essentially we were doing all this out of our admiration for American music. You know, we were copying American music as closely as we could. So the idea of actually being able to copy it and then sell it back to America seemed inconceivably out of reach to us. So But the Beatles did have that ambition, certainly. But if they hadn't done it first, none of us would have ever dreamed it was possible. We idolized America from afar. I mean, I had a poster of the New York skyline on the wall of my bedroom, you know. I had copies of Downbeat with the jazz clubs I would go to when I got to New York one day, circled, you know. And because getting to America was difficult, expensive, took a long time. It was a hopeless aim. And indeed, I've mentioned that when their record went to number one, when I Went Home Tonight went to number one, or when Well Without Love went to number one a few months later, the key thing it meant to us, yes, it was amazing that we had it in America, but even more amazing was the fact that now we knew we'd get to go to this magic land that we dreamt of for so long. So that was the excitement for us. They can't stop us now. We're going to America.
So when you finally came here, was it like Disneyland, or was it like, since you had been to London already, which was pretty cosmopolitan with great theater and music and shows and shopping, was New York the same, or did it really have a magic to you?
Oh, it had a magic. I mean, yes, it was. I think it's the same if you dreamt of going to London. I mean, yes, they're both cosmopolitan cities full of great art and great theatre and great music and great everything. But the fact is, London is London. First time you see Big Ben and Buckingham Palace and all this stuff in the flesh, it's amazing. So the first time I saw the New York skyline in real life, you know, I was thrilled to death. And then, of course, had an additional bonus of being chased around that very skyline by screaming fans trying to tear your clothes off. Is, I assure you, the only way to travel.
You know, I wanted to mention that because the Beatles were selling so many records, they could sell pretty much anything, and DJs would play a song, flip it over, play a star standing there on the B-side. There were so many Beatles records, and they would buy anything. So all of a sudden, in the middle of 1964, there's an actor from Bonanza, Lauren Green, has a single called Ringo, and it goes right to number one.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was about a gunslinger, so interesting. So Micky, when was your first realization that there was this music coming over from England?
Wow, I was working as a box boy at Forest Lawn. No. I was working as a box boy at a supermarket for a summer job. And I was driving to work every morning, my little Volkswagen Bug. I was studying architecture during the school semester, and then getting little summer jobs. I was going to be an architect. If I couldn't make it as an architect, I would fall back on showbiz. And I remember quite clearly driving down from home to this supermarket to pack groceries, and it was B-Day on KHJ in Los Angeles. And there'd been a buzz about this new group, but you know, they build up the suspense and say, oh, it's B-Day, it's B-Day, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And all of a sudden, driving down Sunset Boulevard, and I don't remember the chronology of it, if this would have been before or after the Ed Sullivan show. That I can't tell you. That's a whole other story. And I heard this song on the radio, and then I heard it again. About 10 minutes later, then I heard it again. The phones must have lit up, and they had some heck of a promotional machine going, obviously. But it was just infectious, obviously, very different from anything we heard. And I remember driving down Ventura Boulevard, made famous by Tom Petty, going to my job, packing groceries, thinking, boy, would I like to be one of the Beatles one day. And like I said, I don't remember the chronology, but the Beatles appearing on Ed Sullivan, what was the date of that? I'm sure you know.
February 9th, 64.
February what?
February 9th.
9 of 64. And a friend of mine, I had a kind of a big fancy car. Before my friends would cruise the local hamburger place, a la American Graffiti. And it was like, hey, this new group, and they had this buzz, was on Ed Sullivan, along with this little short English kid singing a song from Oliver named Davy Jones. I don't remember him at all. I hadn't met him yet, of course, not until a year later. But the Beatles came on, and this friend of mine said, I have a portable television that you can plug into your car. Now, in 1964, this is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it was like Star Trek. I was, what? Where'd you get it? Don't ask. He's a nefarious kind of friend of mine. And he, sure enough, about an 8-inch, maybe black and white television with, you plugged in the cigarette lighter, and then rabbit ears that you stuck on the top of your car. I had a little magnet on it, and we're fiddling with it and trying to get a signal. And sure enough, on come the Beatles while we're munching on American hamburgers, and on the set, Ed Sullivan Show. And so that was my first introduction, to the Beatles.
Well, the interesting thing is both of you started as actors, child
Yeah.
actors, right? So did either of you have aspirations to be in music, or were you guys continue on stage and screen?
I enjoyed singing. I'd always enjoyed singing. I'd grown up in a very musical household. My mother was a classical musician.
Would you guys like to move your chairs a little bit?
Well, I tried moving, but then the son did the same thing.
The ship has been known to
Here
turn.
comes the clouds.
Tell the captain it's
It's a
30 on
big
the
cloud now, but it's